So coming back to the housing now, housing can be a very terrifying thing because now you have a lot of debt in order to buy a house, and people, especially if you over leverage. Now I'm starting to talk outside of my scope of expertise here, but my understanding is like the 2008 financial or housing crisis happened from a lot of people being over leveraged and stuff, and so I imagine there was a lot of fear, or at some point you must have encountered fear, like what if this doesn't work out? What if, the house catches fire? What was that like for you to get into the housing scene?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like I am very much like an eternal optimist. And for better or for worse, like sometimes I didn't really want to think a lot about what could go wrong because I was just, one, very inherently intrinsically positive. But two, I was like, if something goes wrong, then something goes wrong and I'll figure it out, right? And so sure, maybe those thoughts came to mind. I think honestly for me, it was more money centric of like, okay, if something goes wrong quickly, like how do I get the money to be able to pay things off, right? And that honestly it happened, right? Like, like within the first 6 months, I think one of the furnaces went out, like it went just kaput.
Yeah.
And so that's like a big ticket expense, right? And so with that, there was just that element of like, okay, like even if that's like, that was one of the worst case scenario things to happen and it happened, what do I do now? Right? Like it's not like I can really let that like really tear me down and then give up on everything. Like what would be the purpose of that? That would honestly be a sunken cost anyways. So
sure.
I was like, we just got to keep pushing through. And so with that, I was like, okay, we'll get this on like they offered certain payment plans. And I just looked at the numbers again. I'm like, we'll still be fine. Mm-hmm. And I have an engineering job that supports me anyways to help, right? Like I still had that stability too. And I was like, cool, whatever happens, I will find a way to make it work. And so those are some of those thoughts that came to mind. But honestly, like, and I think this is a blessing, is I just didn't really let those negative thoughts affect my decision making. Anytime they came up, I was like, there's no real point in letting, like, emotionalizing with that. I just honestly let it subside and I like set it aside. I acknowledged it, set it aside. And I just kept staying positive and had the faith that everything would work out because I'm making decisions and telling the universe that I'm ready for more, right? And I felt I had that faith that if I continue to do that over and over and over again, then the universe will reward me for that.
Yeah. And I love that. I really appreciate your articulation of your thoughts and emotions as you navigated this, because I think that's really something that we don't see. So often we can look at somebody and we can look at the factual external view of what happens in their journeys. Okay, well, first we went to school and then we did this job and then we did podcast and then we did this. But we don't get to see all of the internal things that transpire and what makes the difference between the people who do the same external, I did the podcast and then I bought a house, and don't succeed. What is different about those versus the people who do? And one of the things you pointed out that I think is so true, that at least I've heard from many very successful people, is the optimism and the trust and the faith that things will work out and I will figure it out. And to your point, as you talked about, you then tell the universe, I'm ready for things to work out, right?
Absolutely. And even when you were talking about it was this idea of your thoughts create your reality, right? And so
yes,
what you can see all around you is like other people's thoughts then expressing themselves into reality, right? And so people who might have just like negative thoughts consuming them, I think, they'll start to pay attention to perhaps quote unquote negative things in their worlds, but everybody's living in the same world, right? And so it really is, what are you paying attention to? What are you thinking about? And if you can hold that image of what you want, like consistently in your mind will figure out a way to get that and actually produce that into your reality. But that's honestly, it takes a lot of like willpower and discipline too, but it's not willpower of like forcing yourself to do something. It's rather like the willpower to hold an image of what you want for more of your day, right? And starting to step into that person that achieves that goal with ease, like completely naturally too. And so that is where it's a little bit different from how I think most people view the word discipline or view the term discipline and willpower. I think it's better used for your mind and being able to create a clear picture of exactly what you want and holding that in your mind for longer each and every day.
Yeah, that really makes sense and has rung so true for my life. It has, for anyone listening, like, if you don't believe it and you don't currently practice it, I so encourage you to give it a try, because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by doing it. And it's, yeah, you just should be doing it.